Hey guys, what's up? It's JP back for another video, and this time we'll be touring Morocco. Specifically, we'll be landing in Casablanca today, and Casablanca is the largest port city in all of Morocco. Now, usually people that go to Morocco have two choices. They typically will have to choose between visiting Casablanca or going to Marrakech. We decided to go to Casablanca this time around simply because we felt that the experience in Cairo was similar to one that we would have in Marrakech. But this is our first stop here. This is actually called the Church of Notre Dame of Lourdes. This church is actually known for its stained glass windows, which are quite pretty. You can see how beautifully colored this church looks and how tall these ceilings are. It's quite Gothic. And so it's a nice little stop. Obviously, it's a free activity. What's great about Casablanca is that it's an entirely walkable city. Our next stop here is called the Mohammed V Square, which is the main square in Casablanca. And a lot of administrative buildings are in this area. What's cool about this square is all of these pigeons. These pigeons are notorious for this area, and they actually call this Pigeon Square because of that reason. As we walk throughout Casablanca, what you'll notice is that the architecture here is quite different from that we saw back in Cairo. There's a heavy French influence here, and so there is a bit more of a European flair in this town, which is nice considering that we just recently came off of our trip from India as well as Egypt at this point. For those interested, Casablanca is actually the largest city in all of Morocco. It's also the business center of Morocco as well. And so it does have its unique features here. Like I mentioned, there is a lot of French influence here, as the French did rule over the city and helped in terms of its transformation to an economic hub. Making our way through this park, we make our way to the Casablanca Cathedral. This church used to operate as a real church up until 1956, after the independence of Morocco, when this church actually became more of a cultural center that was open to visitors. A lot of different art displays and a lot of Art Deco architecture is noted inside of this church. And so it's interesting that this church was actually converted into this cultural center. The predominant religion in all of Morocco is Islam, and so you're going to see a lot of major sites in this area that are Arabic, and our final stop is going to be an Arabic mosque. But outside of that, these are just a few spots that were Catholic in nature. Our next stop here is the Medina Market, and this is an example generally of the old markets that were present in Morocco all throughout. It's not as big of a hub in terms of a market when you compare it to, say, the Khalil in Egypt, or Cairo, excuse me, but it's still quite colorful, and it's certainly not as big as the one in Marrakech, but it's representative of the country, and it is, generally speaking, a nice place to walk. This is in the Old Medina, so essentially you're going to see some buildings here that are a little bit older. Like I mentioned, there is a lot of French influence, and you could see that on our way here, but these buildings within this market are a little more run down and, generally speaking, are older in tradition. When you compare this market to the one that we were just at in Cairo, you'll notice that the vibe here is much more laid back, and that haggling here is definitely not as pressure-like, which is mildly refreshing. But I will warn you that the currency here is significantly stronger than the currency that we just had in that of Cairo. And so you'll definitely be for a little bit of a shock if you are just coming from another country in Africa. While Casablanca is a bit more modern than Cairo was, it's certainly reflected in terms of their currency as well. And the food here was also quite expensive. I felt that the food was very similar to that of the food that we experienced in Egypt. It was quite expensive also in relative comparison to it. This is Rick's Cafe, where it's basically a tribute to the movie Casablanca. And this is our final stop here. This is the Hassan II Mosque, which is the major landmark here in Casablanca. This mosque is actually the second largest functioning mosque in all of Africa, and it's actually the 14th largest mosque in the world, which makes it quite impressive. The architecture is quite beautiful close up, and a lot of tourists visit this area every day. What's interesting about this is that it is actually partially built over the ocean because part of it is actually over the coastline, and it makes for a very stunning picture in terms of this mosque, where you could catch it off of the coast, and you could actually see this mosque from anywhere in Casablanca. You could see this mosque off in the distance from the beach as well. So it's quite impressive, and its presence is very much felt all throughout our trip all around Casablanca here. While you take that in, why don't I talk costs with you in terms of our trip here to Casablanca. In terms of lodging, we spent $137 for 2 nights. We spent about $690 on transportation, which included taxis as well as our airfare. And we spent about $100 on food and about $23 on just miscellaneous items. We didn't spend any on tours, but miscellaneous items, leaving a grand total of about $954 with a per day average of about $477, which is pretty reasonable. I think 2 days is certainly enough to see what's in Casablanca. It's certainly worth a trip. Like, comment, and subscribe, please. And our next stop here, we're going to Europe, and our first stop is going to be Amsterdam.